Do you have an opinion formed on building equity in the equipment? Is this, when you buy equipment, are you buying it to build equity to be able to eventually have it as part of your exit plan? Is that factored in?
Yeah, that's a good point. There are many companies who are acquired based off of asset value. So there's companies that are acquired off of that. I don't think I would build a business based off of that approach. And my reason being is, one, it's equipment resale values is cyclical. And so you can't really control that variation, whether you're going to get, there's probably a pretty wide spectrum on what you actually get in resale, depending on the year you did it because of the economy and supply and demand of equipment. Two, I never really want to build value in a company based off of a depreciating asset.
Yeah.
Right? So the asset's going down. I think if you're trying to build enterprise value, you focus on how do I create the greatest return on investment? Because most people who are doing acquisitions are going to do an ROI or an internal rate of return when it comes to the acquisition. They're going to say, if I invest this much dollars, how many dollars am I going to get back? And if they're not, and they're just buying your assets, then you're probably not getting a lot of money for your business. Right? Like,
definitely. We definitely made this mistake, probably up until year 4. It was a giant sandbox. We wanted to own our own equipment and thought, hey, we're going to pay these things off in 4 years, and then we'll have the assets, and then we'll be able to sell them. It becomes a lot more complicated as you start to have, varying terms on, leases and finances, owning some, financing others. When it comes to exit, especially if you exit fairly quickly and haven't planned for, selling, you might be upside down on some of these. That's unfortunately we were on some of our pieces of equipment. We were upside down on some of these loaders. We just bought them, in the past 6 months. So that was a bit of a lesson there. The other thing that kind of, was an eye opener was, if somebody's going to buy you, they're probably going to be bigger, and they'll have more purchasing power than you did. So it's a little bit foolish in a way, or at least I felt like I had been foolish in purchasing, thinking that I was, the best negotiator and I could get the best price on the equipment. But the person that's going to acquire you can go ahead and acquire the equipment cheaper. So they're probably looking at your equipment as, somewhat of a liability, on your balance sheet.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, often what they're going to do is they're going to want to give you a price for the equipment, and they're going to want the equipment to come unencumbered by debt. And they're going to go out and say, what's the fair market value of this equipment? There's, it's not uncommon if you're carrying debt for that debt to be close to or exceed it. And you guys are based out of Canada. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I don't know if this probably doesn't apply in Canada, but in the US, over the last few years, there's been what they call Section 179. It's an IRS tax code that allows you to do bonus depreciation on assets. So in, the first year of owning an asset, you could potentially depreciate its entire amount. So there's one more complication, which is I just reduced or eliminated my tax liability this year. And then in 2 years, I go to sell that asset and I'm close to break even on the asset. But now I have to take a gain on the sale of that asset, because from a tax standpoint, it's at 0 and I sold it for X. So you may actually owe taxes now, even though there's no cash being generated from it.